So this should be a relatively short video. This is Andrew Klavan. He works for the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's media corporation or media newspaper, video, whatever you want to call it, which should tell you everything you really need to know about Andrew Klavan. He's just the epitome of this con Inc. establishment, toe the line type of neocon conservative who essentially thinks that conservatism is just low taxes, small government, and pointing out how hypocritical the unhinged left is, but then, of course, never wanting to enforce our will when we have state power, because then we would just be as bad as the left. So he's typical normie con, and I watched a little bit of this, and what it seems that he's doing is the reason that I'm going to analyze this video is because he brings up Nick Fuentes and AFPAC and completely is just slandering us again, slandering Nick and slandering the America First movement, just like, of course, the left would do. This guy is basically the left wing of the conservative establishment. All of these normie cons are, because what they'll do, and I'll get into more of this as we watch the video, is they'll talk about how crazy the left is for calling everybody racist and neo-Nazis and white supremacists and stuff like that, because that's what they are called to them. And but then anybody to the right of them, they use the same exact left-wing tactic. So let's take a look at this.
And I was looking at Nick Fuentes. Now, I hate picking on Nick, actually, because he strikes me as kind of an unhappy guy, an inwardly unhappy guy. And he always gets angry. He always sets his people on me.
Okay, immediately with the ad hominem attacks, he seems like a really angry, unhappy guy. Really? Because I don't get that impression at all, actually. I think that every show of Nick Fuentes is really fun and energetic and actually gives people a lot of hope. It seems like you're the unhappy one, and you're saying that, oh, well, he just sends his people to attack me every time I talk about him. Maybe because you're talking about him, you're lying about him. Maybe that's why. Maybe people have righteous indignation when you blatantly slander and tell lies about somebody who they admire politically. Maybe that's why.
On Twitter when I attack him, but I do attack him. And they always say, why won't you debate him? And the reason I won't debate him is because I don't respect his ideas. I don't really debate anybody. I discuss things.
Okay. Well, first of all, what did he say? He said, I attack him, but I refuse to debate him, which, and it's because he doesn't respect Nick's ideas. Now, I can't really say that's really too hypocritical, because I feel the same way about Wignats and leftists. I refuse to really even engage with them anymore. I just block them immediately. But it's not because the debate hasn't already happened. The debate has already happened. I have tried personally, and just in general, people on my side as well have actually tried to converse and debate with Wignats, and they just don't get it. The conversation has already been had. They have drifted off into irrelevance, so there's really no point in engaging with them. As far as leftists, these people are actually like condoning pedophilia, and their morals are completely separate from ours. They don't believe in Christ. They legitimately hate white people, and they think that anybody who is really to the right of Bernie Sanders is the epitome of evil. So there's really no point in trying to really engage with those people. I think that debates can still be useful when it's to show normal audiences how insane they are and stuff like that. But for me personally, so I don't really have a problem with him saying that he refuses to engage with people because I don't respect their ideas. But the conversation hasn't been had. You have never even engaged with us. You have never engaged with Nick Fuentes. And then you want to say, I'm going to attack them, but I'm still going to refuse to engage with them. That's what makes it hypocritical. It wouldn't be hypocritical if you had already debated these people. The conversation has already been out in the open. You're refusing to even engage with them, but then on top of that, you're attacking them. And you're not attacking them from a good faith, legitimate standpoint. You're attacking them from a leftist standpoint, where you're using ad hominem attacks and taking things that they say out of context to try and push a narrative and portray something that it's not. You're a reality manipulator, just like virtually every single other journalist in the United States of America. And I've been saying AJAS now, which is AJAS, which is all journalists are Satanists, and this guy is no different.
With people, I don't like conversation as a sport. I like conversation as a way of exploring ideas. His ideas don't actually rank as ideas. When you go on, and he has done this, I'm not making it up, when you go on and say that Jim Crow segregation was better for black people and it was better for white, it was better for all of us, when you go on and make fun of the Holocaust, where men, women, and children were slaughtered in their millions for their last name, basically, because people didn't like their last name. When you make fun of that and then you attach that to Christianity, that's not an idea to me.
Okay, lot to unpack there. So he said his Nick Fuentes' ideas don't rank as ideas. What are Nick Fuentes' ideas? He's a paleo-conservative. He's a nationalist. He is a Catholic who believes in traditional Christian values. He believes that America is a pan-European Christian nation, and that if we lose that identity, then we are no longer going to be America. These ideas are the same ideas that our founding fathers had and virtually all of America had up until about 60 years ago. So, how are you going to say that they don't rank as ideas because they don't fit into the modernist idea of what conservatism is, because they don't fit up to your standards of this, liberty and justice and all this abstract constitutionalist ideas? That's the only thing that's acceptable now. And if you dissent from that whatsoever, then you are just either a crazy leftist or a neo-Nazi racist. That's basically what you are. You are no different than the leftists you complain about. And then he wants to say like, oh, he thinks it's okay to joke about the Holocaust where people were just murdered for their last names. And it's like, so you are part of the type of people that want to be free speech warriors, and either everything is okay or nothing's okay, and we could talk about anything. But when somebody makes an insensitive joke, then that's it. then nope, it's unacceptable. We can't engage with these people who made this unacceptable joke. Meanwhile, people are just constantly in the mainstream media talking blaspheming Jesus Christ, which is the worst thing that you can do at all, right? And that's totally fine. I'll engage. My boss will say that Jesus Christ was nothing more than a Jewish guy who caused trouble for the Roman Empire, and he was punished for his troubles or something like that. Just totally disregarding him, denying his divinity or whatever, and that's completely fine. Well, that's his religious freedom. That's fine or whatever. But then you make a joke about the Holocaust, and that's unacceptable. Then you're canceled. It's complete and utter total hypocrisy, which we all know. But it just goes to show that these people are not acting in good faith. They are not legitimate, serious people. What else did he say? Anything else?
There is
Oh, that's what he said. He said, "Oh, and then you're going to attach these ideas to Christianity. You're going to be a racist and all this stuff, and you're going to hold on, wait.
no path. There is no path from the cross to racism. You
Yeah,
cannot
say,
get there from here. It can't be done. Okay. So when you
hold on. Let's
want to
rewatch
make
that.
fun of the Holocaust, where men, women, and children were slaughtered in their millions for their last name, basically, because people didn't like their last name. When you make fun of that and then you attach that to Christianity, that's not an idea to me. There is no path. There is no path from the cross to racism. You cannot get there.
There's no path from there to racism. I mean, from the cross to racism. You can't be Christian and be racist, which is another leftist talking point. Leftists will constantly say things like, how can you be Christian but also be racist? And I've explained this ad nauseum. What are you saying by racism? Because racism has become just another arbitrary pejorative that's used to silence dissent. It really doesn't mean anything anymore. Same things with terms like white nationalist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, all this stuff. They just throw all of these buzzwords and terms at the wall and hope something sticks. And the point of that is to make it so like, oh, well, we're calling you these things. That means that you're the epitome of evil and you don't deserve to be engaged in. Your ideas don't deserve to be heard. And essentially what it does is it dehumanizes people. That's what they're accusing us of doing to non-whites and all this stuff, which is complete nonsense. But what racism originally, I guess, meant is that you have this blanket hatred towards other groups or other races simply because of their race, which is complete nonsense. That's not what we are at all, and we completely disavow that kind of thinking. It's stupid and immature. But acknowledging that different races have different unique distinctions as well as biological and characteristic predispositions is not evil. It's solid facts. And also, acting like races don't matter and are just interchangeable and that anybody who has a racial identity is evil, especially white people, that is anti-Christian, because Christianity, especially the Catholic Church, has always protected ethnic and cultural borders. In the Catholic Catechism, it says that a nation isn't responsible for accepting any immigrants that are going to disrupt the cultural cohesion or homogeny of a nation. They are expected to assimilate. And the Catholic magisterium also acknowledges that race is an important part of culture and humanity, and that it only becomes a sin when you put the importance of race over God. that's when it becomes a sin. So trying to act like, oh, well, you can't acknowledge that race exists and racism in general is not, cannot coexist with Christianity is complete and absolute nonsense. There is nothing wrong with having a racial identity, especially when people like you will say things like, oh, we need to do more black outreach and completely pander to black people and to other minority groups. But then when we try to say that, well, actually, white people also have self interests and also have collective desires and goals and stuff like that, then we're the epitome of evil and racist, and we can't be real Christians. It's complete hypocritical nonsense.
From here. It can't be done. Okay. So when you do that, I dismiss that. I don't really have anything to say about that except that no, we're all created in the image of God. Racism is an offense against the image of God. You can't get to that place. But he made a speech, and I think it was just this week. They had CPAC, and he was at America First PAC, AF PAC, and he made this speech, which I just found actually fascinating.
So if America ceases to be this people, if America ceases to retain that English cultural framework and the influence of European civilization, if it loses its white demographic core, and if it loses its faith in Jesus Christ, then this is not America anymore.
Absolutely.
So what's fascinating to me about that is there's a lot of truth mixed in with the falsehood.
There's no falsehood.
This is a British/European culture. Mm-hmm. We did get most of our ideas about freedom from the British. They come almost directly from the British. So thank you, Britain, for giving us this idea. It doesn't matter who comes up with the good ideas, right? It doesn't matter if the British were the people who discovered fire. What are you going to do? Say, well, that's British fire. I'm going to live in the dark.
What if British were like the only people that discovered fire? Or like, what if a bunch of different nations discovered fire or discovered like the wheel or were able to like build 2-story buildings or had written languages and only like 3 countries or something couldn't do that? Would that have any relevance or no? It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to eat my food raw. I'm not going to touch that British fire. No, the British came up with great ideas, and the Europeans also came up with great ideas, and that fed into the American founding. And yes, we are a British-based, European-based culture. Christian culture as well. Europe used to be Christendom. All our ideas are informed by Christianity. They would not have been what they were if they hadn't grown out of Christianity.
Correct.
And it is a perfectly fair question to ask. If we lose our faith in Christianity, will we lose those values? I was discussing that with Douglas Murray on the show, right? He has lost his faith in Christianity, but he believes in the Christian values, and he believes there may be some way to keep those values afloat without the rock they stand on.
What? What? First of all, this guy's nose is disgusting. And as he's talking, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but as he's like trying to intellectualize these retarded talking points, he's just getting uglier and uglier. And it's like I said, it's like your ideas will change your physiognomy, I think, or maybe it's your perception. Like as I'm listening to this nonsense, his face is just getting really, really gross and hard to look at.
I think he's wrong, but as he says, it's a very complex question and something that could be asked.
It's very simple.
As far as Fuentes is saying, if we lose our British-based values, which are the values that inform the Declaration and the Constitution, yeah, that would be terrible. We would no longer be America. If we lose our faith in Jesus Christ, it is possible we would lose those values. And into that, he slips in, and if we lose our white core, that's like if we lose our sneakers. I mean, there are so many things that go into a culture. Weather, luck, a million different things, history, all the things that go, these complex, uncountable things beyond our comprehension, things we can't, it's like trying to predict the climate in the future. You just really can't do it. You can only pretend to do it. I think the amount of melanin in people's skins is probably one of the less important things that went on. He's telling you that, yeah, if we lose these influences and if we lose the white people, he's mixing it all together because he's a racist. He believes that this is an important thing when there really is no evidence, as far as I can see, that actually your race is very important to what you accomplish in this world.
Oh, where to start? All right. So, culture and Christianity and European civilization is definitely important influences to America, but it has nothing to do with white people. Well, what are white people? White people is synonymous, or white is synonymous with European-derived individual, right? That's basically, essentially what it has become. Obviously, the terminology has changed, but now in modern America, when we talk about white people, we're talking about Europeans. Now, they want to say things like, oh, well, it's just the culture that influenced it. It has nothing to do with the people. But the culture comes from the people. There's a reason why Europe has different culture than Japan. There's a reason why Japan has a different culture than India. It's because the people living in those environments create the culture. Culture is the spiritual manifestation of each race. Now, you can say that there's other influences like the weather and the climate and stuff like that, but if you change races or you change the demographics of an area, they're not going to react and create the same culture. You can even look at this from a smaller perspective of like neighborhoods or communities or something like that. If you have a community that is 100% Italian and the entire culture of that community is Italian, and then you start bringing in Mexicans or Puerto Ricans or any other ethnicity or race, and you start moving them into the Italian neighborhood. Let's just say you're moving a bunch of Mexicans into an Italian neighborhood, right? Now, do you think it's more likely that as the Italian population of that community declines and the Mexican population rises, do you think that it's going to retain that Italian culture? Or do you think that it's going to start showing signs of Mexican influence, Mexican culture? They're going to start playing Mexican music, making Mexican food, because those people are bringing their culture that came from their race, right? With other things, but race is definitely a strong foundation of where culture comes from. And they're going to bring it to that Italian neighborhood, and they're going to transform the cultural fabric and social fabric of that community. Not to mention, if you're Italian and if you've been around Italians your entire life, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, everybody has a completely different look, a different culture. There's obviously going to be tensions and conflicts arising, right? Because most people are more comfortable around people who have the same faith, the same culture, the same heritage, the same shared ancestry. They're more comfortable around people like that look and believe in the things that they believe in, right? So what else did he say? Let me rewind it a little bit.
He's a racist. He believes that this is an important thing when there really is no evidence, as far as I can see, that actually your race is very important to what you accomplish in this world. So then I went to this.
Oh, what did he say? He said something about melanin, right? He said something that like, oh, I don't think that the melanin in your skin determines what you're good or bad at, or something along those lines. And that's just another leftist talking point of like, oh, race just only goes as far as skin tone. That's all that matters in race. It's all about the melanin in your skin, when that's clearly not true. There are biological differences between different races. There is intelligence disparities, IQ disparities between races. Asians and Ashkenazi Jews have higher IQs than European people, right? Black people are generally more athletic than white people. There are differences between races. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't exceptions. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that don't fit into the stereotypes or the rules. But when you're looking at groups of millions of people and you're looking at different races and you're looking at biological and characteristic differences, you can generalize by groups. So when you start importing millions of different people into a country that have all different cultures, different values, different beliefs, you cannot expect to replace the historical ethnic core of your nation and still perpetuate and retain the same civilization. It is going to change. That's what Nick was saying. Nick was saying that this country is a pan-European Christian nation. And if we lose that pan-European identity and we stop believing in Jesus Christ, how can we say that we are America? The United States of America, and even before we declared our independence, for over 200 years was 90% European and 99% Christian, right? Since the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, now we are under 60% European, and who even knows what percentage is Christian? Our government isn't Christian. Our leaders aren't Christian. We're not upheld to Christian standards anymore. So we are losing our identity. And it's not only about race, but race is important. And this guy pretending that race is just interchangeable and it doesn't matter and it's just about culture, but culture has nothing to do with race, is completely insincere.
Important thing when there really is no evidence, as far as I can see, that actually your race is very important to what you accomplish in this world.
And this is another liberal idea of like anthropology, because up until I think the 20th century, anthropology was talking about how races indicate what their culture and and what's going to be of that community or society, way more so than environment. And then I'm forgetting what exactly happened, but it was there was like this revolutionary anthropological movement in the 20th century that started trying to distance itself from acknowledging that race had actually any impact on the way people act and behave, and just said, oh, it's all environmental influences or whatever, which is just complete nonsense. And also, there is plenty of evidence showing differences of race. Read the bell curve, read human accomplishment, read the 10,000 year explosion. There is plenty of studies acknowledging that there are differences of race. You have to have such an ability to suspend disbelief to honestly believe that there are no tangible differences between different races. It boggles my mind, and it's because it's been pathologized into us that acknowledging different races is racist and evil. And when it's the complete opposite, pretending that race doesn't matter, pretending that nobody is unique or has any type of right to identity, that is evil.
So then I went to this guy, Tim Wise, who's one of these, a white guy, of course, who goes around talking about how racist America is. So he's on the left. This is the wokest woke.
Isn't that not what you are doing? What is different between this leftist that is just calling everything racist compared to you? You're calling anybody to the right of you racist or whatever. So if anybody isn't like this like centrist, upstanding conservatarian who the only thing we could really talk about is like economic differences, if nobody's like that, then they're evil. But these guys on the left, they're the ones that are calling everybody racist. I'm not doing that. I'm just calling everybody who's just a little bit to the right of me racist.
Guy of all. This is what he does, and here's his speech.
If I had to explain to you in one phrase the
Where's his neck?
history of this country with regard to race and with regard to class, this would be the phrase. The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their problems are caused by brown and black people. That is the whole history of America. All the rest, as they say, is commentary.
See, this is the type of person that I would not even bother engaging with. Once you are at that baseline, once you actually believe the nonsense that you just spewed out of your mouth, then there's no reason to respect your ideas or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But the debates has already happened. We have talked to these type of people ad nauseum, and there's just no getting through to them. That's why there's no point in talking to them. With Andrew Klavan, he has never even bothered to engage with anybody from the America First movement, but he continues to attack and take things that we say out of context.
Right? It's all footnote from there.
It's all footnotes. All men are created equal. That's just a footnote to the abuse, because there was never any abuse of the power of the weak by the powerful before America. That never happened. That never happened before. So all the stuff that happened that changed that trained people, taught people, guided people away from abusing the weak, from saying that.
Look at that gap between his teeth. Now, I don't know. I'm going to guess that this guy is pretty well off, right? He's definitely richer than me, I would assume, being that he's pretty much a public figure and he works for a big media organization. And if I had a gap in my tooth, I would figure out a way to fix that, right? If this guy is probably around a millionaire, why wouldn't you fix that? That's just disgusting, and it's kind of making me lose concentration.
The weak were born to be weak, that the small were born to be small. All those ideas.
Same thing with his nose. Look at his nose. It's like coming down on like a slant, bro. Like, fix yourself. Like, at least, I don't know, man. I would just think that if you have money, his teeth are all messed up too. It's not even just that gap. Look at this. I don't get it, man. Like, if I had that money and like I had something really physically wrong with me, like my teeth were messed up or I had this bulge coming out of my nose, I don't know. I would definitely just get it fixed. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
That changed the world, that didn't exist on the planet, or at least were in gestation on the planet until America gave them a home and a being. All that's it's just footnote, because the only thing that matters is the color of people's skin. Tim Wise and Nick Fuentes are the same guy. And the reason is the bad idea is all bad ideas are one bad idea. There's a great idea, which is let it go. Love your neighbor. Don't judge. Judge lest you be judged. If you let go of that idea, you are stuck with that one bad idea that somehow you are the master of your life, that somehow you are going to create your own virtue. And then it turns out that the only way you can create your own virtue is by pointing at the sins of others. And then it turns out when you point at the sins of others, you have wrapped yourself in chains, and your chains are your virtue. It's all bad ideas are one bad idea.
Holy shit. What a fucking revolutionary take. They're just the same. The left and the right, they're just the same. Like they're nothing matters. Nick Fuentes and Tim Wise are the same exact person because they both acknowledge that race exists. And that's just a bad idea. And all bad ideas are one. And then he just gives like these false, meaningless platitudes that just mean nothing. Well, judge not lest they be judged or whatever. And it's like you're invoking Christianity when you are clearly not a Christian, because right now what you're practicing, I think it's called calumny, right? Maybe, or calumny, which is essentially slander. That is not a Christian thing to do, by the way. And saying that, what's it called? Thou shalt not judge lest he be judged or whatever. If you actually read what that means, it means that you're supposed to have righteous judgment. It doesn't mean that you just don't judge anything. You're actually supposed to judge pretty much everything, but you're not supposed to judge people that are doing the same thing you are doing. You're supposed to have righteous judgment. You're not supposed to judge people who are committing the same sins that you are without repentance. That's basically what that means. So essentially, this is Andrew Klavan, complete. I don't really separate him from like the radical leftists who are doing the same thing to people like him, where they're just calling everybody neo-Nazis and racists and all of this stuff. And basically what they do is they use ad hominem attacks, they use meaningless, arbitrary pejoratives to try and slander us, and to try and take things that we say out of context to purposely misconstrue jokes or irony that we make, and then just basically equate us to the epitome of evil. And that is slander. That is trying to destroy us. But luckily, most people are waking up to the idea that these words and this slander just don't mean anything anymore, and they really hold no power. So that's like a white pill. But it is kind of annoying that it shows that these people are actually worse than leftists, in my opinion, because we know that leftists are our enemies. They are identifiable enemies. We know that their morals are not our morals. We know that their viewpoints and their ideas of what they want America to be are not the same as our ideas for what we want America to be. This guy claims to be a conservative. He claims that this cancel culture and all of this stuff is just complete nonsense, and we can't allow that or tolerate that, blah, blah, blah. But then he does the same exact thing to patriotic Americans because they're more right-wing than him. And then he tries to invoke Christianity and say that actual Catholics, actual Christians are not real Christians because we're racist. And you're doing the same exact thing that leftists are doing, but you're doing it under the guise of conservatism, which makes you a traitor because you're not representing your constituents. You are trying to pander to the moral framework of the left because that's your moral framework. You have the same exact moral framework as the left, which means that you're not much different than the left. So, and it's the same thing with all of these types of people, all of these neocon, establishment, conservative, toe-the-line people. They are no better than the left, and they're actually worse because they're traitors. And this is why we need to just make sure that we reestablish what conservatism actually means, and that it's not these abstract ideas of liberty and freedom and small government and low taxes and all this stuff. That no, actually, America is a people. America is its heritage, its culture, its traditions, and we're losing our identity. And there's nothing wrong with every race, including white people, to advocate for their group interests. And that doesn't mean that you hate other people, but it does mean that you acknowledge that race is an important factor. It doesn't mean that it's everything. It's not the end all be all, but it does matter. And these people cannot comprehend that, or they act in bad faith where they don't want to comprehend that because they know that it would be bad for their careers. Because this guy works for Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro is an enemy of America. He's not even American. You know, he puts the interest of Israel over America, and then anybody who criticizes him for that, he calls an anti-Semite. So what does that tell you? So yeah, that's pretty much my analysis of Andrew Klavan, the backstabbing traitor to actual conservatism. And I feel like it's just going to be more of this. More people are going to start slandering America First and Nick Fuentes and anybody associated with that. I was just called an outspoken neo-Nazi in another article. But it comes with the territory. When you're involved with politics in any form, especially dissident politics, you can expect to be slandered and mocked and just have your statements taken out of context and misconstrued. And it's really sad. But we have God on our side. We are the actual Christians, and ultimately, no matter what happens on the temporal worlds, we're going to win at the end because Jesus Christ has already won. So, yeah.